Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. How would you describe Generation Z?
Gen Z. That's a hard question.
Breaking news tonight, President Trump declaring the coronavirus a national emergency. The move freeing billions for the fight as America contracts to slow the rapidly spreading pandemic. The number of cases in the U.S. rising over 2,000, at least 49 deaths. All schools closing in a growing number of states. Millions of students impacted. Houses of worship suspending services. Landmarks, theme parks, sporting events, and concerts shutting down. The chaos at grocery stores. Lines stretching out the door. Shelves cleared out.
The situation here in Santa Monica, California is very fluid. You can see police here now firing tear gas into the crowd. They are trying to push these folks back.
I can't breathe.
It's the moment that launched a movement. Nearly 8 minutes of video that shocked the nation, showing a white police officer kneeling on the neck of a black man named George Floyd.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up!
This year's deadly wildfires and monster storms, terrifying signs of things to come, according to tonight's dire new assessment from 13 federal agencies.
Does seeing this devastation, though, change your opinion at all on climate change, Mr. President?
No. Tens of thousands of boats, they came in duffel bags. Where the hell did they come from?
How do we go from this to this? Empty streets, an abandoned urban landscape. And then how do we go to this? How do we go from an extremely social world to one of isolation? A nation in disarray, a country divided even further than before. And how do voices rise out of the darkness? More importantly, which voices rise out of darkness?
You want more of your people to die? You cowards! You want more of the people you're supposed to protect to die? You cowards!
6 minutes and about 20 seconds. In a little over 6 minutes, 17 of our friends were taken from us, 15 were injured, and everyone, absolutely everyone, in the Douglas community was forever altered.
You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you.
The young and the bold. A group of individuals plunged into a new strange world, raising their voices over the rest. Generation Z. Generation Z, also known simply as Gen Z or Gen Zers, are defined as people born between 1997 and 2012, currently ages 9 to 24. They grew up under circumstances different from the rest of the generations. Never knowing a world before the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center.
FBI agents, and you can see the two towers, a huge explosion now raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Children during the Great Recession of 2008,
The signs were everywhere, but now it's official. We are in a recession. The research group that makes that determination made it today and said the recession actually started a year ago.
The first generation to never live without internet.
It's believed at this hour, and it's been confirmed to ABC News by state police there in Connecticut, that 2 shooters were initially believed in.
To live in a world where school shootings are a daily occurrence. To fight climate change from such a young age as to protect their future. And growing up in an America with increasing partisan tension.
You called it the gold standard of trade deals. You said it's the finest deal you've ever seen.
No.
And then you heard what I said about it, and all of a sudden you were against it.
Well, Donald, I know you live in your own reality, but that is not the fact.
Now, this generation is faced with its first pandemic along with the rest of the world, as well as calls for justice across all issues. How has COVID-19 changed their lives? What do they think about the world around them as the older half is entering adulthood? How do they view America? How do they view themselves?
How would you describe Generation Z? I feel like all the older ones kind of just like blend together in my brain, where it's like, what's the difference between like a Gen X and a Boomer? Like, I don't know like the age groups or anything like that, but I feel like Gen Z, and I guess kind of like millennials too, are kind of like this. Like, it's very like a specific kind of like brand of people.
Crazy. I mean, there's a lot of activism going on as far as gender equality, the LGBTQ plus community, racism. So we have a lot of activism going on.
We're kind of the generation that at this point are like activists and being active on like a ton of issues in the world right now. And I feel like we're the most like, again, like in general, we're learning to be very like accepting of everybody, and just like no matter who you are, what you look like, what you choose to do, like you're cool.
So I think that Gen Z is an extremely powerful generation that we use our words and our actions to easily define our personality, but I think that it has been so heavily laughed at. Gen Z, we already are looked at as like a problem.
I think I'd say that our generation is probably the most liberal generation yet, for sure. We have matured faster than any other generation for a multitude of reasons. First of all, we're the most oppressed generation. We've had a lot of major events so far, especially from a young age. 9/11 was kind of right at the start of our generation. And plus the internet is kind of the biggest thing. That's definitely affected us in a lot of ways. I think we do have a God complex though, for sure.
I think we are definitely talked to more as children when we're growing up. Like, I can definitely see that a lot of the older generations look down upon us and still think we are very much children, even though we are still technically legally children. But it's more of treating us like children and thinking that we can't do anything. Like, we can't do anything by ourselves. We have to have some form of help.
We are the most diverse generation. We are also the most queer generation.
Gen Z, I would definitely say, is a lot more open about being a part of the LGBTQ.
When I think of Gen Z, I just think gay. I just think gay because all of my friends are queer in some way. I don't think I have any straight friends.
In several states, every school has shuttered to slow the spread of the virus. In Los Angeles, the nation's second largest school district, with over 500,000 children, classes are canceled for at least 2 weeks.
So even though you've graduated, you went to school
in the spring.
Yeah.
So how did school change and how did that affect you?
At first school was off for 2 weeks and then another week and another week, and then it was like, okay, for the rest of this month. So it was just really uncertain the whole time, and I think there's a lot of classes that I had that I'm sad that I didn't get to finish out my year just because it was like a very different experience.
My grades in school have definitely changed. That's gone downhill. But band has definitely had the greatest change. I'm in my school's wind ensemble, and it's definitely pretty different this year.
It kind of screwed over my grades because I was so used to like, oh hey, it's just a 2-week break, what can go wrong? And then I was like last sophomore year I had to write my iSearch all in the span of 5 hours. And because I was just slacking the entire time. Then it came into like the math where I didn't understand the math because they weren't like really going over it. And then I realized over the summer, I'm like, the teachers are doing their best to do everything in their physical possibilities, that they're trying to do their best, and they're also probably more stressed than I am because I'm dealing with one like sheet of work almost every week, but they're dealing with like 200 sheets a week.
When we first locked down, it was overwhelming. Like teachers would schedule meetings at the same time. So like last year I had chemistry and math both trying to meet at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Obviously I can't do that because I needed to go to both meetings, but I couldn't. And the work was overloaded. My teachers weren't communicating with me, and I had a few breakdowns. And it was very stressful for me. Now it's a little easier because we go to school 2 days a week, so I can meet with my teachers, see my friends, because when lockdown first started last March, I couldn't see anyone. I was stuck in my house with my brother for like 2 months, just trying to get all my work done in time.
When I was doing online school in the spring semester, as that happened, I did not have any motivation. One of my classes I got an incomplete because I just couldn't finish the final paper, and my professor is my advisor, so she understood, but it still felt bad for me having to like see her be, I guess a little disappointed.
Was there a certain way that you went about going to school or doing schoolwork that has changed now?
Yeah, I don't.
You don't do schoolwork in general?
I sleep, that's what I do. Yeah, no. Before I used to do schoolwork on the bus, then I got my license and I would do it in class, but now I'm at home, so my class is all the time. So it doesn't really get done until like 3 a.m. at the end of the quarter, if I'm being quite honest. I learned that I actually miss school. For the first time in my life, I actually miss school.
It's so stressful because it's not double the amount of work, but it feels like it is because you have to teach yourself. And some of the teachers are helping, like for AP Stats, she puts out a video every day that I'm like my remote days. So it's like I'm in class, but I'm obviously not. But I just get really stressed out easily, and having to know that the work is still going to be piled up no matter what happens, like the idea of it just stresses me out.
Last year, it was such a bummer. I wasn't able to say goodbye to so many people, and I definitely took a lot for granted.
It definitely sucked, like, especially because it was my last year, like, having to say goodbye to, like, teachers and stuff in that way sucked because, like, there's a lot of teachers that I would have loved to, like, have a more meaningful, like, goodbye with them and tell them that they helped me a lot and meant a lot to me, and I couldn't really do that in the way that I would have wanted to.
It gives me incredible pleasure to say this next sentence. Ladies and gentlemen, we present the Mount Ara High School Class of 2019.
my graduation experience was very different in general, so the fact that it was like my senior year was getting messed up wasn't as big a deal to me, because my senior year wasn't even really my senior year because I graduated early, so I was still in classes with juniors and stuff. I wasn't like missing out on a ton of stuff, other than of course like graduation was weird, but even that, like, I didn't really mind it because my graduation was already so weird. Like, I was graduating with a class that I hadn't grown up with, and I wasn't going to Project Grad. Like, I wasn't really connected to the actual graduation like ceremony in a way that I think a lot of people are. So for me, that wasn't like devastating as it was for other people.
It's really crappy, honestly, because senior year is supposed to be like, I wouldn't say like the best year of your high school years, but like probably the most fun year of your high school experience. And to know that we won't be able to, or possibly not be able to experience all of the fun activities that we do at the end of the school year is sad. Like, I want to prom, and I want to go to Project Grad, and I want to have some sort of graduation. Not just like giving my diploma and be like, here you go, time to leave.
This year I've taken a gap year because online school was awful for me, and that's thrown me off again. Having a job is nice, it helps, but it's still hard. Like, one of my friends is back on campus, like everything's still online, but they're still back on campus, and like I see my other friends doing work, and like, not that I want to write essays, but I do miss engaging my brain. But the thing is, like, online school for me, I'm going to Sarah Lawrence because I like having these small in-person like discussions, and we can actually like go somewhere. But with Zoom, you can't really talk at once. Like, interrupting someone, there's a delay. It's just, it doesn't flow naturally. So I've really missed that engagement with other people and like sharing discussions.
COVID affected my job a lot, actually. I work at a restaurant, and so when COVID first hit, we were all kind of like not really sure what was going to happen and where we were going to be going with it, because obviously you kind of have that ultimate fear of like, what if we do shut down and then none of us have jobs and we can't continue, like what if down the road our restaurant has to shut down completely. For the first 2 weeks our restaurant was closed completely, and then for a couple months, I'd say until June, I wasn't working there at all. But I'm in a privileged position where my parents were able to help me and support me, and I'm not paying rent or anything like that. So for me, it wasn't devastating to like not get a paycheck like it was for a lot of other people, but it was just really weird to have that whole switch up where I was working the weekends and going to school 5 days a week, and then school stopped, work stopped, and I was just doing nothing.
For a little bit, I did not have a job. In the beginning, when I was ejected from school, like everyone else, I had to come back home. I was doing Instacart and DoorDash, which was awful. I wasn't making money because as many deliveries as there were because of COVID, that means I was using more gas, and these like cheap, it was like $6 an order at most. So I wasn't making anything, and I didn't need to depend on it because luckily like my family supported me a little. They know I was making a bad choice living out of my house. But I can't imagine like how people who were really hit hard during COVID have to make money off of that as their like main life support. It's pretty much impossible. You can't really do that alone as your only job.
So I work at the escape room in Brunswick and Monkey See, Monkey Do in Wisconsin. And at first, I just stopped working completely right when it hit. I mean, pretty much everybody stopped working as the whole world shut down. but eventually I started working at both places again. I wasn't too comfortable at Monkey See, Monkey Do though, because a lot of people there didn't take it seriously. I was one of a few people who actually wore a mask, and I didn't really have a great experience there, COVID-wise, but eventually they started reinforcing mask wearing and put up a lot of guidelines, so I feel a lot more comfortable working there, and it's pretty much back to normal at both places now.
I know a lot of Gen Zers were stuck working retail. Really makes you lose all hope in humanity, especially working at Redacted.
What's Redacted?
Kohl's. Gen Zers are always like, well, not always, but majority just nice, and they put things back, and they're like very aware that other people are working there and they have to clean up after all these other like rude, mostly elderly people. And it makes me feel better about our generation, at least.
And it was just very strange, and it felt very different, and it's definitely not like the parts that you like about your job. Like, I feel like a lot of people could kind of have that, where the stuff that you're doing now is just like the boring stuff, like putting ketchup packets in little bags for hours, you know. I think for me it was definitely cool because I was able to get like a bigger position at work, just because we needed more people, and obviously the situation was just so weird that I was able to become more of like a out front person and being like a server and stuff. But it was definitely still just really weird, just a really different environment.
The only thing that I saw was that it was harder to get a part-time job. It was extremely hard. Like, I would go up and down Main Street looking for a job, and all I would hear is the words of, "Oh, no, it's fine. If anything, the business now, I can manage it all by myself." And I'm like, that sucks. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, is this because of COVID, or is this just because of low business? And now I know it's just all together.
Yeah, okay. So you don't have a job as of right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Still looking.
Wow, so how long have you been looking?
A year.
A year?
Yeah.
Wow.
How concerned were you about getting the virus?
I was definitely, I'm still definitely super nervous, but I was even more nervous like at the very start, because I remember when we left school on Friday and over the weekend, I remember the whole time before we knew that we were going to be out of school, I was kind of panicking about, okay, what if I have to go back to school and I'm in a room with 50 people and you're not supposed to be in a room with 50 plus people? And I was kind of thinking about all those things. Like, for a couple months, I didn't go anywhere. Like, I didn't go to any stores or anything like that.
Very. I have a heart disease known as bicuspid aortic valve, where it's a heart mutation. I have an undiagnosed, like, weird heart thing. It's not a heart murmur. My grandfather's been in and out of the hospital. Both my grandparents, I care for them, and it's been nerve-wracking whenever I hear, like, there's a COVID case at the school, because I'm always thinking, like, when am I gonna get that call, and when am I gonna tell my grandfather that I might have been exposed?
So my mom, she has lupus, which is an autoimmune disease, and so we have to be pretty cautious, but she just got the vaccine, which is good. She works in healthcare. So I'm still going to be wearing a mask, being cautious, because I personally don't have the vaccine, but it's a little bit of a breath of relief, is to know that even if I get it, she could be in good shape.
Having my mom as a nurse, she didn't seem, she was concerned about it, don't get me wrong. Like, she was like, you can't go out for at least 2 weeks. But I didn't think it was that bad. Like, I know the risks, but I feel like I'm not in those categories, you know what I mean? Of like the higher risk people. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna go out and like party every other week either. But And now that there's a vaccine coming, I'm not like terribly worried.
My dad, very recently, one of my dad's students, his whole family got COVID. Yeah, so the student actually ended up not having COVID, but for a while we were really scared that my dad had been in immediate contact with somebody, and this was right around Thanksgiving, where we didn't see anybody for Thanksgiving, but it was still like, okay, we've all been in the same room, and we were all like making food and sharing stuff, and like luckily it turned out to be fine. My dad got tested, he was negative. The kid ended up being negative, but it was definitely like, you have all those like panicky feelings where it's like, okay, but he did this, 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 we saw these people. Like, you think about how it affects literally every single person.
The COVID-19 pandemic triggered yet another crisis among the people of America, one concerning interpersonal connection, or rather lack of it, due to the distance required to stop COVID-19's spread. Teenagers are especially impacted, of whom are naturally social, in which close interpersonal relationships strongly inform their experiences, their mood, and emotional health. The 6-foot distance isn't purely physical. It imparts emotional distance far greater than just a couple meters.
How have you maintained relationships throughout COVID? So whether that's with your family, with friends, etc.
One thing that I think is actually kind of like cool about COVID is I feel like a lot of people were able to kind of connect more with people that they might not have done in the past. Like, for me personally, I have a lot of extended family on my dad's side who just live kind of all over the country and in different countries, so we don't see them a lot or talk to them a lot, and we started doing like weekly Zooms with all of us, and that's something that, even though for us nothing had changed in where we were physically, like it's not like we were able to see each other before and then we couldn't, but it was just cool that even though nothing had literally changed in how much we could see each other, we then started talking on Zoom and talking a lot more and just kind of being connected in those ways that kind of helped us all at that time, and just sharing our experiences with like COVID and just being crazy. So that's kind of a cool thing, is you can like interact with people in ways you might not have done before.
I think Gen Z has really learned how to definitely use social media as, especially now, just a replacement for physical friendship. Because that's what I've had to do. I can't see anyone, and most people live, even if I were to go see some of my closer friends, that's still 6 hours away. So that really made me lose like a little bit of sanity, not being like knowing that everyone's quite a distance away.
I've only really maintained my relationships somewhat. I feel like there are a few people that I was best friends with, talking to every day last year, that I haven't talked to in months now, which is pretty disappointing. I definitely miss them. But as of the people I see in school, I'm still able to see them at least a little bit, which is nice. And my family, I probably see them about the same amount as I did before, as my grandparents on my mom's side live a little ways away, so I see her about the same. My grandparents on my dad's side, I see them a little less than I did before, but it's not too bad.
I would try and set up like hangout times with my friends and family, but if not, I would just play a video game with them. That is just the straight up most honest answer I could ever give. Especially with like my grandfather going to the hospital this summer, I was like extremely cautious. Like of who I was with, where I was with, like all of the above. At some point I think I was triple masking.
Well, my grandparents are at risk. Not just my grandma because she's old, but my grandpa because he's old and he used to have cancer. He used to have multiple myeloma. He's in remission now. He's been really good. But they haven't been able to leave their house this whole time. Like, because people don't wear their masks. It makes me so angry. Like, they're old. It's like I want to spend so much time with them. They're in their 80s, early 80s, and I haven't been able to have as much time with them because because of this. Like, they used to come over to our house every weekend, but now it's mostly just FaceTime, or when they do come over, they stay in their car. We just talk to them from there. It's just so disconnected. And it does, I mean, it makes me more grateful for the time I get to spend with them, but it makes me wish, like, I could spend physical time with them.
Well, I mean, I really only hang out with one friend, and that's Bella. And we usually FaceTime, and then it got to the point, probably like a month and a half in, both of our parents realized that it's really hard on all of us, mentally and emotionally, to be away from each other. So at that point, we were just kind of only hanging out with each other. I would usually go to her house and hang out. And then as summer came by, my parents kind of let up, and I also played summer softball, so I was able to see more friends during that point. So I was able to see my closer friends than compared to everyone else.
But I think it was definitely hard, like especially for people you did see on a day-to-day basis who you were used to talking to in person, like my friends. We would just like text or FaceTime, and it just got so, like for me, I just got so sick of like doing FaceTime. Like I was like, I don't want to see their faces this big on my phone for one more time and like barely be able to hear them and us interrupting each other. I want to just actually see them in person.
The nation erupted into scenes of chaos, violence, and widespread destruction into the early morning hours. Dozens of American cities up in flames after some protests turned into riots, often followed by looting as a nation simmering with unrest unraveled.
How long can you be peaceful when your people are dying?
In Los Angeles, hours before a curfew was ordered, the city became a war zone. But there was also troubling scenes caught on camera at the hands of police. This video appearing to show an officer putting his knee on the neck of someone taken into custody before another officer pulls his leg off. A shocking scene after the death of George Floyd, why so many poured into the streets.
We can't peacefully protest in the streets without getting tear gas thrown at us for what?
George Floyd, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor. These are just a fraction of the names belonging to victims of police brutality.
Did you participate in any Black Lives Matter or women's protests this year?
Back when those were happening, my family is still pretty worried about the pandemic, so we were pretty cautious, but I tried to get out. I went to Portland for one of them for just a short period of time, and I wasn't like super involved with it. I went with my mom, and we stayed kind of on the outside, but I really wanted to participate. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. It was pretty peaceful. There was a lot of I heard a lot of stereotypes talking about the rioting, but it was so peaceful. It was like everyone there was really nice. They were involved. We all came together for a matter or for a cause that we all really cared about. I'm also pretty privileged. As you can see, I am white, so I do have that privilege, which it does exist. No, but I don't care what anyone says. White privilege is real.
Did you participate in any BLM or women's protests this year? Because I know that was a big thing.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't because my mom said I would get shot. Surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah, she said I would get shot because I'm white.
Wow.
She said I would be shot because I'm white because black people are hating white people right now. I'm like, Mom, that's racist. You know that, right? And she's like, but that's also because of the cops. And I'm like, if anything, I would be least likely to get shot. And that is me knowing that I have white privilege because of my skin. And I don't want to take advantage of that. I wish I could, because I know a lot of people need support, especially black people right now.
Yeah.
Because, especially with the George Floyd, I definitely saw, everybody saw more police brutality. Police brutality brought more to light in the past. It's a wake the f*** up moment, we need to fix our shit moment. Because we all look back at, like, we have Martin Luther King Day, we have the Black History Month, but the policy we think about that, but we don't really think about that.
I went to a couple, I don't remember how many, I went to a couple Black Lives Matter protests in Portland, and then also a couple in Brunswick. I think for me, like, it was devastating to see all the stuff that was happening, and it's still devastating, and it was really cool to see how people were reacting to it in my community. Like, even the fact that in Brunswick, the town that I work in, there was a Black Lives Matter protest is really cool, because I feel like I definitely wouldn't have thought that a couple years ago. So it was definitely cool to see that there is a community of people who have similar kind of opinions to me. Not that that's really what protest is about, but you know, it was cool to see that our community had those parts to it, of people who did actually care about what was going on. And it definitely, protests were honestly the first like big thing I did after COVID. Like, by the time I was going to protest, I hadn't even gone to like the grocery store, so it was definitely like biggest things I did in COVID, but it was just important. So.
But there have been some surprise turns this year that were definitely unexpected, such as the Capitol. I think we all know what I'm talking about.
Well, it looks now like the Capitol, the police
Pete, let me break away from you a second, because things are happening very quickly there on the appears to be the east side of the Capitol. People now have moved past the police and into the building. Ellis and Barbara, what can you tell us?
Hey, Lester, yeah, you can see what's happening right in front of us. We saw Capitol Police trying to push people back, hold them back, and arrest them. They did seem to be arresting some, but they no longer have been able to keep them back. You can see some Capitol Police officers and protesters up there waving for more.
It's a real sick thing that happened. It's embarrassing, and it's a true reflection of the deep-rooted ignorance and hatred in America. Trump lost, fair and square. It was pretty clear that he lost.
All the things we talk about up here sound so abstract. When we talk about the peaceful transfer of power, it just sounds like something from a book. This is what it looks like when you don't have a peaceful transfer of power.
Can you tell me where you were when you found out about the events at the Capitol?
I was actually watching a live stream. It was the counting of the electoral votes. I remember watching it.
My challenge today is not about the good people of Arizona.
And it will stand in recess until the call of the chair.
We'll pause.
Protesters are in the building.
Thank you.
I started watching a bit more, and I'm like, wait, where? Damn, I thought I was going for a bit more. Then I just saw this dude jump down, or like just barge in, and I'm like, oh. Okay, then. I was disgusted. I was very disgusted that the fact that not only that if it was a Black Lives Matter protest, the Metro Police guards would have been fully strapped up. Like, and I barely saw any form of firearms that the police ever using. And I was thinking the entire time, like, wait a minute. If this was a Black Lives Matter, this would be a completely different scenario. And then I saw, like, more footage of police actually opening up the gates for some of the insurrectionists, and I'm like, oh my god. And then some people even came prepared with pipe bombs and legitimate body armor.
just to see that they were so, like, easily able to get to the Capitol and get to the Senate chambers is a little concerning compared to other events where, say, the police were, like, needed. Like, I would like to think that the police are always at any building within our Capitol, just in case something like this, and obviously they can call them back afterwards, but I feel like there should be some sort of protection for our Congress people, because they're the ones who make laws that dictate our daily lives, so they do need a little more protection than just, like, one cop standing outside the doors.
How has this year affected your mindset about the state of our government and our country?
I really don't think America did a good job handling really anything this year.
No. I can't vote because I'm 17, but so close. But I have a lot of thoughts on the election. I think that Donald Trump is a horrible person.
Grab him by the pussy.
And he only cares about himself.
I can name Kung Flu.
And he makes bad decisions for our country every single day. He gives a lot of power to the people who are anti-maskers and racist and pro-life and all these things, where he makes it seem like he gives them, like, this power and gives them this idea that they're, like, everything, and that they can say whatever they want, and it's just horrible. Our country has so much that needs to change and needs to be worked on, like racism, sexism, homophobia, and I think while Joe Biden, I don't stand for everything he says at all, and I definitely don't think that he's gonna make every right decision. I don't think, but just because Joe Biden is president, our country isn't gonna be racist and sexist and homophobic, but he is more of a step in the right direction.
I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
This last year, especially with COVID, masks, everything has been so polarizing with so much of the government. Like, you can see which politicians are just absolutely horrible and which ones are actually, like, trying.
I think with this pandemic, it's able to show how politically divided we are as a nation, because there are people who have far left beliefs and far right beliefs, and people really don't want to come together and find a compromise. Like, a lot of what you heard on the news was the left bashing the right, or the right bashing the left, and there was no compromise. And it just shows us that there's a lot of work that has to be done to try to unite us, and I feel like our government is starting to take steps, but they're not, I feel like, the steps that we need right now, because there are other things to worry about, like COVID vaccines. I feel like the government could have done more, and obviously it's hard to do that in a democracy, because democracy is for the people, so there's only so much that you can do if the people aren't willing to cooperate with that government. But at the same time, like, there are steps the government can take, like making masks mandatory whenever we're out in public, because I know in states right now, in some states it's like optional if you want to wear them inside a business or not. So I don't know, it's just, the government is not doing what it needs to, but at the same time, there's only so much they can do because people aren't willing to cooperate and feel like their rights are being violated with what the government should have to do to protect us as a whole.
Kind of following on that idea, how has this year and the events of this year affected your mindset about the state of our government or country?
I mean, I didn't have a lot of faith in our country and in our government system before 2020, but if anything, 2020 just really set that in for me. Not every day, but a lot of times I'll see something on the news and I'm just like, what the heck? Like, how are these the people who are making the decisions for our country? The people who think this way? Like, it's just insane to me that I feel like Gen Z and even just other generations as well, like my 11-year-old brother knows more about what Black Lives Matter really means and climate change and how COVID is affecting us than like the President of the United States does. I wouldn't say knows more about it, but like acknowledges it as a problem. And it's just insane that that's like where we're at right now. It's also unfortunate that some of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's last words were talking about how she didn't want to be replaced until there was a new president, and just thinking about our country and the state of our country, which it's kind of, I think, shows a lot of how, like, what state our country is in, that when someone's dying, that's what they're thinking about.
She meant so much to millions of people's lives, and I know what her last fervent wish was, that she not be replaced until a new president is installed. And that is how we should honor the legacy of this totally remarkable, courageous jurist, and that is to honor her last words, that she not be replaced until a new president is installed.
So you would say that your faith in the government has kind of been, yeah,
not good. Do better, America.
Oh, it's always been god-awful.
Your mindset or the country?
The country.
It's made me definitely more leftist, of course. I already didn't have hope in the government just because of the whole Trump administration, but this made me lose more hope. The fact that there was an attempt at a coup in 2021, and the fact that there's just the corruption, not just from that, but like so much in the last year has been revealed.
If America would actually agree on anything, we would actually be able to move forward, but our country is so divided right now that we're not really able to do that much, and it's really disappointing. But my faith in our government has definitely gone downhill.
Mad? Why do you feel mad, Buglet? Because of this pandemic thing.
Their feelings so many kids are experiencing during these highly unusual times. 9-year-old Anderson Fields, one of an estimated 4.4 million children nationwide coping with anxiety amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and 1.9 million dealing with depression.
How has your mental health been affected by this year's events?
Well, I think for like everybody, mental health was just like, especially in the first couple months of the pandemic where we were isolated with our family, I feel like everybody's mental health went downhill. Like nobody was, I think, really mentally stable at that point. It's like, it was definitely really hard because I think when you're isolated, you have kind of like that depression sink in, and then when you have all these thoughts about crazy things that are happening, like specifically with COVID, you have all that anxiety about if you get the virus and all these little things.
It hasn't been great. No, it has definitely not been ideal. No, I don't think I have been quite as fantastic as I have before. Definitely not.
What's the word for rapid decline?
Rapid decline.
Rapid decline, that's the one. I look like the 2020 stock market crash.
It hasn't decreased by much because I have my behavior, my attitude hasn't changed, but it definitely has decreased a little bit because now I get stressed out very easily, or my anxiety kicks in at the most random times and I don't know why. But especially when it's around school, that's when I get the most anxious and most stressed, because I have so many deadlines that have to be met by a certain time, or else I don't graduate high school. And that really stresses me out. It obviously declines my mental health.
My mental health can be impacted by things that are happening in the world. Like when I see the news every single day of just like a black person was just killed unjustly, there's this many more COVID cases, Donald Trump is doing something fucking crazy.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection?
Sorry, I shouldn't say fucking. But like, so it's definitely hard. I think that takes a toll on your mental health as well. But then I think there's also, you could always say the other side of that, where seeing all the protests and seeing like things happen, you can also say that's empowering in a way. So there's definitely like different levels, I guess, of it. But I think, yeah, I will say like, yeah, like I said, like everybody's mental health is affected, but I definitely wasn't like, I didn't hit the deep like trenches of bad mental health, but I'm also on medication, so I don't know. Like, yeah.
It's been hard. Not being in school has really taken a toll on my mental capacity and just mental health in general, but that really, I think back to the cynicism for a lot of people, online school or just not being in school because of the pandemic like I have been, has just devastated a lot of people's hope in the world. I know it certainly did with me. I did not have faith in anything for a while. Not having a job and being in the middle of quarantine like the Brent in March, April, May took such a toll on my mental health. I was so depressed. At one point, I was just painting and staying up late and not being a functioning person. And I know having a job would have very much helped give my life structure.
Just being isolated in general, what is something that you might have learned?
I've done a lot of research. I've become a lot more aware of current events. I've learned more about the racial inequality and just racism in general and how corrupt our system is.
I've learned how to actually listen to my emotions, and with quarantine and just being isolated in general, not working for this little bit, that's the only thing I can do really is like face my emotions, because like if I don't, then I just wake up and that's what I'm thinking about. I have no where or way of escaping them. So I've learned how to just feel whatever I'm feeling and really listen to myself and listen to what I need.
I don't know, I feel like isolation has taught me that while I do need other people, like I just can't rely on myself all the time. I do need other people around, like my parents or my friends. I just can't do everything by myself, even though I would like to think that I can.
I'm a lot more liberal. I think I've matured quite a bit. I've become, that's one thing I can say. I've learned a lot more about myself while being isolated. I've become a lot more aware of like who I am as a person. I've had a lot more time to find myself. I don't think I've like found myself yet, but I am more aware of who I am than I was before.
I've learned a lot how to entertain myself and be a lot more productive when it comes to like my art and stuff. That's what I've learned.
I took everything for granted. I want to be able to go to a full week of school. I want to be able to experience the relief of having a Friday again. I miss being able to just call up my friends without having to say, oh, how are we going to carpool? We have to wear a mask. Oh, can't really be in close proximity to each other. I also miss being able to hug my friends and family. I want to be able to get out of my room and go places.
I think we are definitely taught to more as children.
Do they look like children now? Because they won't be soon. Not for much longer. Are you listening to the voices rising out of darkness? Are you listening to their cries? Are you working towards progress? Are you helping their voices rise?
Life isn't a battle of who can do it the best by themselves. It's more of who can do it the best with the help of others.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. Wear your mask.